All right, and we're back. Episode 19, Off the Edge. We're talking running backs today. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me is a linebacker, Cameron Lynch. So not a running back, but he knows a thing or two about going out and smacking one of those.
We got to. And we think we're glorified running backs, Jake. A lot of times we should give other linebackers looks. We think we're the running back, with the sweet feet. So super excited to talk about the running backs.
Hey, and there's sometimes you get a Miles Jack here and there that can play running back, right? Or was a running back, or maybe could have played running back in the league. I mean, it's you don't know. So
there you go.
We're gonna be talking about some really, athletic freaks, specimens, whatever you want to call it. We're gonna be talking about guys that maybe not so freaky athletic, but at the end of the day, this position is just crazy in this league. You never know who's going to be in the top 10. This year to 3 years ago, it is so different. Even the honorable mentions, I can't believe some of the names that are on the honorable mentions list. We don't know what each other picked yet. Like, we're just going to go through, we're going to list them. I don't know if I picked the same guys as Cam. We did have the same 10 quarterbacks. We had them in different orders for the most part. I think this is going to be more fun, though, because I think with this, running back is up in the air. I mean, for the most part, quarterback, you have 15 guys that you could really... Running back, there are a lot of guys, and it also depends on how you view the league. So
yeah. Some guys get hurt. Some guys are healthy this year, but the guys that did get hurt last year, are they still in this top 10 list? You got guys who've broken records, but have just emerged on the scene of football. So a lot of exciting stuff.
Absolutely. You know what else is exciting? BetOnline.ag. They're your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA playoffs. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs, from basketball, MLB, NHL, golf, to UFC and boxing. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games, available to play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. So, Cam, we're going to start with honorable mentions this time because we want to give those guys some credit. It's a hard list to crack. I still don't know if I got mine right. You probably don't know if you got yours right. There is no right list because it's based on how we see the game. And so I'm going to start off and just name some of my guys. You can name some of your guys on the honorable mentions. Then we'll go into the top 10 after a discussion of the honorable mentions. Starting off, you got to give a mention to Breece Hall. This is a guy that before he got hurt last year as a rookie was leading the entire NFL in rushing yards, and he basically changed the Jets' offense completely around overnight. Kenneth Walker, a rookie, another rookie there, fantastic running back. Was really impressed with what he was able to do in Seattle and kind of made us scratch our heads a little bit about the second round pick that they made at the same position. Then you look at Ramondre Stevenson. Guy doesn't get enough credit. I wanted to put him at 10. I wrestled with him at 10 and my 10th pick. I almost spoiled that. But Ramondre Stevenson, what he is going to do in New England, as long as they stick with him as the bell cow, it's going to be fun to watch because he had 1,000 yards last year. He's really emerged out of Oklahoma. Dameon Pierce almost had 1,000 yards. Injury hurt that rookie season for him, but he looks really good with the Texans. He also has himself a quarterback. Alvin Kamara, I was a little all over the place with him because not really the legal stuff doesn't really concern me as much as far as who he is as a player. That's what we're talking about. But it's just weird as far as like, what is his role now? Where are we going with this? They go out and they get, Kendre Miller, so that'll be interesting. He was an honorable mention. Joe Mixon, another honorable mention, had a really poor year last year, in my opinion. Really big down year. I expect him to take a huge stride. He also has some legal stuff up in the air, but that's, no effect on his play. Cam Akers, last 5 games of the year, he was among the best in the league in rushing and just yards per carry average. So where is he going to be this year? I had him as an honorable mention. Last but not least, Dalvin Cook. I think at one point this was a shoe into the top 5, and now I don't even know if the Vikings are going to bring him back. They basically took him out of the graphic the other day, and they had Alexander Madison in there, who also is not honorable mention, but I think he's somebody that could be on this list mid-season. But who do you got?
Yeah, I like it, Jake. 2 guys that were in the Super Bowl but aren't on my top 10 list. You got to shout them out because they made it to that point. Isaiah Pacheco, Jake, this is a guy that can run the football. He only ran for 830 yards last year, right? 5 touchdowns, but super explosive. You saw him in the Super Bowl. He was a straight problem, whether it be catching the football in the backfield, whether it be making someone miss. He is a high-level guy. And then going to Miles Sanders as well, coming from the Eagles. He was leading the league, right? 5th in rushing at one point and made it to the Super Bowl. So you can't look past that. If guys make it to the ship, I think you automatically got to push them forward and say, hey, we recognize your efforts here, right? You talk about a guy like Alvin Kamara, you know, who's going through different things. And some of these guys that are on our top 10 list maybe not have played as well as Pacheco or, you know, some other, you know, stats-wise. But like I said, you got to show these guys some love. So my next person, Jake, who's not on my list, Najee Harris. Najee Harris coming into the league, you know, year 2, you think it's the sophomore slump. I think he's starting to find his groove, rushing for 1,000 yards, right, making the playoffs. So he's finding it. He's starting to click, and that's someone I want to shout out. And then, Jake, you mentioned Kenneth Walker, someone who we covered Believe in Rams, someone who snapped when it comes to Believe in Rams, and we've seen him just snap against the Rams, running for miles. So that's a guy that we also want to tip our hats off to. But like I said, Pacheco and Miles Sanders, those are my 2 honorable mentions. Like I said, they didn't make it on our list, but these are guys that need to be recognized for the efforts and for making the championship run there.
It's so tough, Cam, because you're going through them and I'm like, oh, that would have been an honorable mention. You could have had like 20 honorable mentions. I mean, you know, and I think that's the interesting part about this position, because you're going to have guys that just have different type of skill sets. And I guess it's based on how much you care about those skill sets, right? And so, you know, I think another guy I'd mentioned is Bijan Robinson going into 2023. You know, him and Jahmyr Gibbs are guys that we're going to have to look out for, you know, mid-season. Not saying we're going to do a mid-season series. We're going to have a lot going on, so don't expect that. But,
maybe.
You know, if we were to revisit it, though, maybe if it was just a graphic, like, I mean, I think it's very fair to say they could be in that.
And with quarterbacks too, right? We talk about the quarterback, Anthony Richardson. Is he going to be the midseason, you know, starter or superstar? Maybe after preseason, Jake, right? We talk about some of the preseason warriors and what that looks like. I have my suggestions, but I would love to see where these guys pan out once the season starts and what that looks like.
Devon A-Chain. I'm just saying, like, he went to the best fit, I think, for him. Like, I think that, you know, so those are interesting, but let's not waste any more time. Top 10. Here we go. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. Okay. I think Christian McCaffrey is the best running back when healthy. And I can't stress enough, Cam and I, maybe we're taking a little bit into account injury, but it's not enough to take guys out of the top 10. And I think when it comes to Christian McCaffrey, we'll get more into it as we have a discussion, but he definitely is the best running back, in my opinion, in this league right now. Nick Chubb's number 2. Nick Chubb, to me, is the best pure runner of the football in the league. He has had every single season in his career has been 5 or better yards per carry average, and he was 4 yards away his rookie year from getting 1,000, which would have been 5 straight seasons, and having 1,000 yards or more in every single year he's been in the league. So number 2 is Chubb. Number 3 is the monster Derrick Henry. You know, King Henry just looks like he was built in like some, you know, create a Madden player, you know, mode or whatever. He's like, you know, what happens when you take an undersized tight end and you make him a running back? It's crazy what he's been able to do. He's 3. Number 4, Saquon Barkley. You talk about the injuries. Really happy to see Saquon step up last year and really kind of lead that Giants team, help Daniel Jones out a little bit, and he was huge last year for them. Number 5 is the most consistent running back in the league aside from Nick Chubb, Aaron frickin' Jones. I don't know why this guy does not get enough credit on Green Bay. Doesn't matter if you add an A.J. Dillon, you try to take away his reps. This guy's constantly leading the team or close to the team lead in receptions. And he's always around the 1,000-yard mark or going over it in rushing yards. So he's number 5. Number 6 is last year's rushing champion, Josh Jacobs. Had a little bit of a tail off the year prior, came back with reckless abandon. Number 7 is Austin Eckler, but he has an argument to be in the top 3, in my opinion. He is absolutely insane what he's able to do. He's a true slot receiver playing the running back position. He's built short, but doesn't mean that he's small. The guy can actually lay the wood, if you know what I mean, and really run downhill. So he's always impressive. He's number 7. Number 8, disappointing season for him, but I'm not out on Jonathan Taylor quite yet. He, had an unbelievable year where he was up for Offensive Player of the Year and might have won it if not Cooper Kupp blowing up for the 1,900-yard season. But when I look at Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be back. He's going to have a young quarterback. He's going to get more opportunity to run the ball. Jonathan Taylor's at 8. Number 9 is Tony Pollard. Finally, Ezekiel Elliott's out of that backfield, and Tony Pollard can be the guy. He always should have been the guy. He is the best running back, and he has been in that room for the last 3 years. Tony Pollard's number 9. And number 10 is Travis Etienne Jr. I think when you look at Travis Etienne, his first year, his rookie year, he really showed you he offers everything you would want in a slot receiver, but he offers everything you want in a running back. And while, there's some concerns, can he stay healthy? He missed his first year due to an ACL tear. He came back with reckless abandon and looked unbelievable with Trevor Lawrence. So he's number 10 for me.
Yeah, I love Travis Etienne. You mentioned Tony Pollard. Those are guys that I wanted to mention on my honorable mentions, but I know, hey, they're on your list, so it's all good. I'm going to start from the bottom, Jake. I'm going to go with Jamal Williams, right? I was wrestling between Jonathan Taylor, like, hey, Jonathan Taylor, should he not be on this list? But Jamal Williams, to see what he did last year, Jake, is a true testament. I know he was on Hard Knocks. He was actually beefing with my guy, Zaire Franklin, who I went to Syracuse with. And so I was kind of out on Jamal. I was like, hold on, dog. You're not going to mess with my guy like that. And to see him progress throughout the year, to see his clips, just to see him handle himself in the interviews, he is himself truly. What people say, show up to work as your authentic self. That is something he does, Jake. So we all love Jamal Williams. Breaking records for the Lions, right? We talk about some of the Sanders and some of these running backs, these legacy running backs that have went through that program, and for him to break their record, Jake, gotta throw him on the list. So he's my number 10. Next, Jake, Alvin Kamara. I know he's up and down, injuries, whatever that looks like, but just me playing him personally when I played the Buccaneers, true nightmare. I mean, it was a game he had about 5 touchdowns, right, in one game. So you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. He's one of the best, I think one of the better running backs on this list. And like I said, these past couple of years, it's been a little washy, but Alvin Kamara, very dangerous. Next, Jake, I got Tony Pollard here on my list. Tony Pollard, the fact that he won that Ezekiel Elliott job or that running back job over Ezekiel Elliott over time, it says a lot. Jake, when Ezekiel Elliott came into the league, it was him and Todd Gurley that were just almost unstoppable. And so, we talk about people like Saquon Barkley. I saw Saquon this year, watch his tape, and he's looking super explosive like Ezekiel did, where he's just running through people. I mean, and those legs really churning. I got Saquon as my number 5. But going back down to number 7, we talk about Austin Eckler, right? We talk about his production in the end zone, in the red zone, touching that end zone. He's done it more than most of these running backs this year, last year. And like you said, he could be argued as on top of that list.
We both had him at 7, but we both said the same thing. Like, this guy could be a top 3 back. It's no hate against him. There's just some crazy talent at the position.
Yeah, and it's also tough too, because when it comes to the Chargers and their relationship, we're not sure where that is. So, hey, we'll see what they do with them this year. Hopefully they feed him.
We did get some news on that. It looks like he's willing to play out the rest of the deal. They gave him an incentive bonus, so they gave him one that he's going to hit, obviously, and so it's like $2 million. So I did see that they reworked his deal. Maybe rework isn't even fair to say. Maybe tweaked it, gave him a little bit, hey, just trust us. And you're like, all right, at least he did something.
Good. Right. Hey, that's all we need. So I'm glad Austin Eckler's locked in there. That question mark is not hanging over our heads anymore. I said Saquon Barkley is my number 5, Jake, right? Comeback player of the year. He's world-class talent. And so the fact that he was able to put that together last year was great. Make it to the playoffs. And then jumping back down to number 6, Aaron Jones. You talked about being super consistent. Just his motor, Jake, the way he operates on the football field, catching the football, running the football, finding different angles. Love the way he plays. So he's my number 6. And then going to the top 4, Jake, I got Nick Chubb. I mean, my man's squatting 700 pounds, 600 pounds anytime you cut on a tape, right, of guys working out. So Nick Chubb, he's dangerous. He's dangerous. He can run. He can do it all, pass pro. And then number 3, Derrick Henry. Come on, man. Guy 6'5", running the football at 22 miles an hour. Who's going to stop him? Who's going to stop him? Only God can at this point. And then second, Josh Jacobs. I got him as my number 2, Jake. I know you mentioned him petering off a little bit towards the end of the year, but he was Mr. Football. When you cut on the highlight tape, you see him running for 80-something yards, right? I think it was versus the Rams where he broke 80 yards to seal the game, or it was some team that we were playing against. But Josh Jacobs is a true spectacle to watch. And then number 1, Christian McCaffrey, Jake. I mean, my man scored 3 touchdowns 3 different ways during the game while transferring from another team during the middle of the season. So his production's insane. He deserves where he is right now. We talk about a resurgence of a career. He's definitely resurged his career. Not to say that he wasn't like that at the Panthers, but he was a little bit injury prone. And now being with the 49ers, he's getting the love and the respect that he deserves. So Christian McCaffrey, number 1, Jake. Wow, what a list.
I know. I mean, hey, I think once again, without really knowing who we picked, I mean, we kind of picked similar guys, right?
Yeah.
I love that I'm not the only one on the Aaron Jones island. Look, Aaron Jones, let's just start off talking about him, because I think he is one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. Now, what people will quickly say is this guy played with Aaron Rodgers, right? And my pushback would be this guy was asked to play the wide receiver role, essentially, be the guy when they were going through that rut where they decided, you know what, Aaron needs a wide receiver, Aaron needs weapons, we're going to go out and get him Jordan Love. When they went through that spot, Aaron Jones had to step up and be their leading receiver, essentially, after Devontae Adams. And I don't think he gets enough credit. I always said, for every little piece of evidence or every piece of credit people give Dalvin Cook, I think Aaron Jones is a better version of Dalvin Cook. He's a more well-rounded version of Dalvin Cook. Maybe not as hard-hitting. Like Dalvin Cook puts his head down and runs with some power. But Jones is so good, man. He's so consistent. And when you look at him getting to 1,100 yards rushing on 213 carries, it's a testament to his hard work and how, like, this guy, he comes from UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso, and
yeah, that's where he wears that cowboy hat.
yeah. And he was like a 5th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. So in the same draft, your guy Jamal Williams was a 3rd round pick for the same team. So he had to work his tail off to be like, I'm the guy. And he did that. And so I've always respected Aaron Jones. But what I love the most about running backs is the dual threat, the all-purpose. You can block, you can run, you can catch, you can run after said catch. And that's something that Aaron Jones does well.
Yeah, let's talk about someone else that does that really well. Let's talk about Austin Eckler, Jake. I think we talked about him a little bit. We talked about his contract. Thankfully, he's locked that in. Austin Eckler, he's not that big, Jake. You talked about the dimensions there. He doesn't he's 5'10", so he
looks smaller height than he is, but he's so strong. I don't think people realize, like, you think, like, to me, small isn't just stature, and I think we gotta kind of get over that, right? It's not just stature, because small is Darren Sproles, right. Small is Deuce Vaughn, right? That's small.
Yeah.
This guy's more filled out. He's not quite small. When you see him, you're like, okay. Like, you don't want that guy running into your chest.
Yeah, like an action, a superhero, right? Action figure. Yeah. Like that's what he prides himself on. And coming out of Western State, right? Like, come on, fam. Austin Eckler coming out of Western State, playing for the Chargers, one of the bigger markets in the country, in the world. Like that's pretty damn impressive. And so Austin Eckler, the way he's able to catch the football out of the backfield, the way he's able to run the ball, Jake, you see those legs, churning. I think what makes him look that way is his pants might be a little bit too big, Jake, for me. His knee pads kind of go down to his shins. I don't know if I like that, but Austin Eckler, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's his pants that kind of make him look like.
That's true. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, like you remember Michael Turner, the Atlanta Falcons? Yeah, like he wore his uniform differently, so I think that's why he looks so different.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. So maybe also maybe the offseason he can change it up a little bit. You know, he got a little bit more money, so he can change it up. But no. Austin Eckler though, true gamer. And I talk about gamer right now, a football gamer, but he also off the field he owns his own gaming company. So it's really cool to see what he brings to the table, not only as a running back but also off the field. Really jump into the gaming space. So Austin Eckler, glad he got signed and glad he can protect his quarterback, right? And Justin Herbert. We talked about those ribs being protected. So he's a sleeper for me. He's someone that I think is gonna. I don't even say sleeper, Jake, because he's up there, but he's someone that people do sleep on. I would say when looking at that team. And then, like I said, going back to Alvin Kamara, Jake, I want to see him back in his bag. We talk about him scoring 5 touchdowns. I'm not sure. It might have been a Vikings game. I forget who they were playing, but my man scored 5 touchdowns in one game. So I think if he's able to stay healthy to get back right, I think he can break that top five on this list if he can.
So I'm really wondering, as far as our list goes and everything, I'm really wondering how high a guy like Tony Pollard, who's finally going to take over as the guy in the backfield, goes over 1,000 yards. What's his ceiling now that Elliott's out of the... Elliott was about 800 yards taken away from Tony Pollard. I'm not saying Tony Pollard, who, he's not the biggest back ever. I'm not saying he's going to, command 300 touches, and I don't know if that's necessarily him. But what I will say is that 5.2 yards per carry this past year, 5.5 last year, right? Was 719 yards rushing, 4.3 the year before that, and 5.3 the year before that. He's averaging 5.1 yards per carry for his career. And the most attempts he's ever had is 193 in a season. So he had 193 sharing time. Like,
that's a lot.
I mean, sharing time with Elliott, who was like a beloved Dallas Cowboy, like even though he wasn't, it was kind of like Todd Gurley in 2019, even though they already had a plan to like kind of move on from him, and you could tell they weren't going to just move on for, like, they were going to let him play that out, that season out. Elliott, he still produced. I'm not trying to say he didn't, but like he's not the same back.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that explosiveness. And like people talk about like Todd Gurley and how all this explosiveness was gone after the injury. But I would push back. I'd say Todd was even more explosive than Elliott was like right now. Like Elliott's really lost all of it. And Elliott wasn't more explosive than Todd. That's the thing, is that, he didn't have that long speed. He didn't have that explosiveness Todd did. He was just a tick behind him. And then obviously if you're behind him at that point, then it's going to get worse over time. And so, Elliott's still young, but he's had injuries. And I think this is Pollard's backfield, like we've been talking about. He's had a plus 40 yard run every single year of his career. This past year, he had a 57 yard run, I believe. And he's a threat out of the backfield, as a pass catcher. So
I like it. And Jake, I want to discuss Tony Pollard, of course, his success. Like you said, hopefully his ceiling is crazy. Hopefully he finds a Deuce Vaughn backing him up. And I want to talk about a little bit of Ezekiel Elliott, right? At that Todd Gurley, how you just discussed those running backs, Jake. When I say I was on the sideline and Ezekiel Elliott, it was Brent Grimes, I think it was, going to tackle him. Brent Grimes, Jake, we talk about, he's like 5'7", coming out of Shippensburg out of Pennsylvania, and he's going to tackle Ezekiel Elliott. And mind you, Brent Grimes is like, the ground is here. Brent Grimes is getting real low because he wants to attack his ankles. He's getting about this low. Ezekiel Elliott's helmet is like meeting Brent right where his shoulder is. Like Ezekiel's like, I'm running right through this, man. It was probably one of the most punishing blows that I've seen. And Brent is walking off the field after he gets ran over by Ezekiel Elliott holding his shoulder. And after I saw that moment, I was like, okay, this is prime time Zeke. What we're seeing now is not the same. So I do hope that he goes to a team and can find some success and hopefully get him a chip right before it's all said and done. But two people that I wanted to highlight, Jake. Number one, Saquon Barkley, right? Comeback player of the year. We talk about everything that he's done at Penn State, and then moving on to the Giants and then succeeding there. He was Offensive Rookie of the Year, right, when we first got to the league, and had some troubles along the way, and then now 2022 Comeback Player of the Year. Jake, 0 fumbles last year. 0 fumbles. I think that's a true testament. 10 touchdowns on the season. I think that's really impressive. 1,300 total rushing yards. But I will be remiss, Jake, to not talk about number one, an extension, Christian McCaffrey. Coming from the Panthers, dicing up the Rams, Jake. We were watching the game, the Panthers and the Rams games. He was reversing field. He was doing anything he wanted to with the Rams. And then midseason, we thinking the Rams are going to get him, right? Because Cam Akers, we didn't know where Cam Akers was going. There was a lot going on with the running back room for the Rams. And so we were like, okay, this is our time to get Christian McCaffrey. He just crushed us the week before. Let's go pick him up before this trade deadline. And the daggone 49ers got him, Jake. And as Rams fans, we were a little bit pissed. And to see Christian McCaffrey get a triple crown, a passing touchdown, a running touchdown, and a receiving touchdown in one game, that was really, really impressive. And he has 0 fumbles on the season. I think that's really impressive compared to kind of how we talk about no flags, right? Not getting any penalties, not having any, allowing any sacks. Like, those stats cannot be overlooked. So Christian McCaffrey, numero uno, he is Mr. Football at this point coming into the 2023 season.
Yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, when he's healthy, he's the best. I mean, the only one that I've seen de facto better running back than Christian McCaffrey, within the last, say, decade, it'd be Todd Gurley.
100% healthy. And I would say Alvin Kamara. I'll throw Alvin Kamara in there as well. He was definitely up there. Adrian Peterson, maybe a little bit before. Because I said decades, so was it after the torn ACL? Was that the 2010 season? I mean, I don't even remember. It kind of blurs for me. But I mean, Adrian Peterson, that year that he was literally threatening Eric Dickerson's record, that was some of the best running back play I've ever seen. Now the thing, my pushback against Adrian Peterson is that he was not the pass catcher that Todd. And he was not the pass catcher that Christian McCaffrey currently is. Yeah. So what we're seeing with McCaffrey is that he's only really being rivaled on that level by Austin Eckler. Saquon Barkley, that was the hope. What I think ended up happening is the same thing that happened with Todd, is that Saquon Barkley missed some games. Keep in mind, his rookie year, he plays every game. Barkley goes for 1,300 yards, adds 700 plus receiving. So his first year of his career, Cam, his rookie year, the guy has 15 touchdowns, in 2018, and he's got over 2,000 all-purpose yards. Yeah.
And then the next year, he suffers an injury. Now, it's not, he plays 13 games, but it kind of spooked him a little bit. And all of a sudden, the 91 receptions goes down to 52. And then he misses almost all of 2020 because he gets hurt in that, I believe it was the Steelers game, week 2. He comes down with 6 receptions, has 19 carries, right? Because the injury. Then he comes back in 2021, he's got 41. Then he has 57, which is a second all-time career high in receptions with 338 yards. So he's finally getting back to that point, but I don't think we're ever going to see a 91 reception, 721. I don't think we're ever going to see 2,000 all-purpose yards for Saquon Barkley again, because now it's like, all right.
Got Darren Waller over there. Now the Giants, they got someone else to throw to. I'm just kidding.
well, no, you're right, but also, this guy was approaching 300 carries last year, Cam, and went over 300 total touches, was getting closer to 400. So you want to use him. You're not like, I don't want Saquon Barkley to use him as just a runner, because that's a waste. The guy's an all-purpose guy. But you got to be careful, because running backs are just there's too much wear and tear. Barkley already had that going into the NFL because he was very much counted on at Penn State. The only thing that it gets him kind of away from that, and we talked about before with Bishop Sankey, I think I brought him up twice on the show, because I always think about guys being used into the ground. Bishop Sankey had over 600 touches at Washington. By the time he got to the NFL, he was spent. The only redeeming quality is that James Franklin, for whatever reason, when Barkley was killing it, he'd stop running the ball. So that's the only thing that saved Saquon Barkley, because, man, that dude would have been completely run into the ground because he's that good. So the Giants, just cautionary tale. He played 16 out of the 17 games last year, 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. You got Saquon back to being Saquon. Don't ruin it.
Don't ruin it. Don't mess it up, right? He's offensive player of the year, rookie of the year, now comeback player of the year. So he's on a streak there. Jake, and someone else that we talked about as well that I want to bring up, Josh Jacobs. I don't think we can sleep on him, just the type of season that he had the year before, rushing for 1,600 yards, Jake, 12 touchdowns, 400 reception yards. That's pretty daggone impressive. And 340 attempts. That's and then like I look at him and we talk about Austin Eckler. I talk about Austin like, hey, he seemed like a little tight, Josh Jacobs does not look that way. Josh Jacobs is 5'10", but he's 220. So that 20 pounds of muscle or whatever that is, you can tell the difference. But
it ain't fat.
It ain't fat. And Jake, this guy, he's coming out of Alabama, so the school is a little bit different, right? He's living up to the hype. But we think about some of these players that we have in our list, and we got two guys from Alabama. I'm realizing. Oh, if you count Alvin Kamara, right? He started at Alabama, but but you got two guys coming from Alabama. So is Alabama RBU? I don't know, but for my list, I got Josh Jacobs, an Alabama guy, and I got Derrick Henry, another Alabama guy. So they have big backs. They got big explosive backs, home run ability type running backs, and they even going to Derrick Henry. Last year, I didn't really see as much as we're used to seeing for Derrick Henry. So this year, are we going to crown him again, right? King Henry. What does that look like? Is he going to have a 2,000-yard rushing season? Now we're going to see him, running 22 miles an hour. Jake is 6'5", 240 something. Like, I mean, you see him doing these crazy workouts, where he's on a Bosu ball, freaking pulling up chains and just doing these unruly things. He's balancing on one foot and freaking stiff arming people. Are we going to get that this year, Jake? Are we going to get the Derrick Henry that's really tossing people out of the club? I'm not sure, but
it is scary because his time is coming. Like, I mean, he just had 1,500 yards. Like, they have not done any sort of damage control with him whatsoever. I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm just saying the guy is almost 30 years old, which is, what that means. And when you look at his career, I mean, let's just go over it real quick. Rookie year, 110 carries. Oh, yeah, that's not bad. 176, then 215, then 303, then 378, then 219 because of injury, and then 349. And that's carries, Cam. That's not touches. Right. So you're still getting hit when you're catching the ball. And what I will say is you gotta worry about managing this guy's touches. He's had 127 receptions in his career, had 33 last year, which was a career high. They're starting to use him in the receiving game. And it's like, it sucks because I love it because I feel like he hasn't been utilized enough in the receiving game. And I think if you used him more there and took a little bit away for like the carries, you could kind of manage him a little bit better. But there's no give and take him. They're just going to keep giving, right? Yeah. So, this guy is going to have his first, I don't know if we ever had a 500 touch season, but we're going to see one soon if they don't watch out.
Yeah, I mean, when you're as big as your offensive lineman, Jake, and you can run that fast, shoot, give him the daggone ball, right? Run the damn football, but you're right. Load management. You mentioned when running back gets a certain age, things peter out a little bit. So we want to see Derrick Henry run the football next year. I think that'll be something that'll benefit everyone. And we talk about some of the teams that are super deep in the running back room, Jake. I want to discuss that a little bit. We talked about the draft. We talked about the Seahawks, how the Seahawks they are running back we feel like, right? They like to draft all the running backs and their mother when it comes to the Seahawks. But would love to run through that because we talk about injury, how important that is. And we talked about doing a midseason review. The guys that we're listing, right? Will they be healthy? What does that look like? But would love to go through those running backs that the Seahawks have and just the depth, because we talk about quarterbacks being a valuable position, but got to be able to run the ball because that running game opens up the passing game, Jake. So, yeah, let me just look through here, find some of these guys, the running backs.
Well, it'll be interesting watching those rookies. I think, not just the incoming rookies, but last year's. I mean, Breece Hall technically, like I said, was leading the league in rushing before he got hurt. That Jets offense had just completely been revamped with him, and then didn't look like the same. Now he's got Aaron Rodgers. Kenneth Walker. It's like he was a second round talent. Has 1,000 yards his first year. Yeah, let's go out and we'll get a second rounder in Zach Charbonnet. Very odd. Very, very odd. They also drafted another running back later on that we talked about in Kenny McIntosh. But that's something that I'm monitoring. Ramondre Stevenson's got a lot of help, around him with the Patriots. These are honorable mentions, of course, that we mentioned. But I think Stevenson is out of all of these guys, if there's one guy that has a chance to be in the top 5, where he explodes, okay, the biggest chance, I think it's Ramondre Stevenson. Because I think with Breece Hall, I think that, the ACL, he might have a little bit of some bumps in the road coming back. I think he's going to be great, though. I just think that Ramondre Stevenson was really finding his stride, and that's why the Patriots were just like, yeah, you know what? Damian Harris, we don't need you, and I think when you look at what Stevenson does, I just feel like he plays so much faster on tape than he did at Oklahoma. Maybe it was a short sight on my part, but I really can't stress enough with this new offense, getting Matt Patricia out of there, because that's seriously, that's like hiring the GameStop manager to coach history or to teach history. Why is the GameStop manager a history teacher? GameStop manager is the GameStop manager, right?
Yeah.
You work at a beverage factory and now we're gonna have you become a creative writer. Why? Patricia's so good on the defensive side, so why was he ever on the offensive side? And that's
Yeah, and my question is Mac, and then Mac Jones, right? Mac Jones is looking for outside quarterback help, and he's on Belichick's bad list. But it's like you said, you got a writer, making beverages, and it's like, hey man, I want a Coke. I don't want Harry Potter, bro. Give me the Coke. This doesn't match up, and let's figure this out. So yeah, bro, I feel you. And with Ramondre, when it comes to quarterbacks, new quarterbacks like Mac Jones, having a solid running back like this to bail him out, I think is really helpful, or to bail out the Patriots in general, because their stuff was backwards from the start. But like you said, I love that. A writer creating drinks, it's just mad weird.
Or if you're hey, I like recommendations, right? I'm constantly asking for them on Twitter. So it's hey, can you guys recommend me a new sitcom to watch? And you don't mention New Girl, How I Met Your Mother. No. You mentioned The Sopranos. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the whole thing, with Mac Jones and what he was saying about the offense, the reason I bring it up, it gives me some, I don't want to say I'm hyped about the Patriots, because I think they're the worst team in the AFC East, and not their own doing. I mean, it just seems like everybody else got a lot better. Yeah. But that offense hypes me up for Ramondre Stevenson. And that's my thing. And maybe Mac Jones to a degree, who was a Pro Bowler in his own right. And we didn't really mention last episode, but I think he's also another guy to look out for. Cam Akers. Let's talk about him real quick.
Yeah.
Had a whole big thing last year. No one knew who was going to be the starter except for me, because I said it was going to be Darrell Henderson. No one believed me. And then he ended up trotting out as the starter against the Bills week 1. Shocker. But yeah, so Darrell Henderson being there clearly affected Cam Akers, because having a guy alongside him, he doesn't deal well with the pressure. He doesn't deal well with competition. That's what we learned. But when he
couldn't play the Seahawks, clearly, because I'm looking at their list of running backs. He couldn't do well there.
No, he could not. I mean, if the Rams went out and got Zach Charbonnet, he'd be demanding a trade. Let's just put it that way. So, I mean, it's nothing against him. That's just, some guys can't handle it. I mean, if I'm being honest, if I'm a running back and I believe I'm one of the best, I don't want to have to share time. I want to be in that rhythm. I want to get 20, 25, 30 touches a game because I believe in myself. And that's, Cam Akers. The reason I bring him up is this. Okay, we talked about him. Look, end of the day, this guy, he went through a lot. He tore his Achilles off site. That was freak.
Yeah.
So
and you don't get paid for that either. You can't get rehab and recompensated for that either. So.
Oh wow, that's good
for like recovery, and when you do rehab and whatnot, I think that comes outside. That payment comes out of your copay or your insurance rather than through the football building. I think they can work with you and help you recover, but
if you do it off site, it's your responsibility. If you do it. Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's your responsibility. Yeah, if you do it through the NFL, then I think you can get taken care of and all that's proper. But if you get hurt in the offseason, that's why guys don't like to get hurt in the offseason because that has to come out of pocket and is a little less coverage when it comes to that.
That's tough. Yeah, so Akers shows up in his rookie year towards the end of the year. You're thinking great. I mean, like the way he finished out his rookie year, the playoffs, he just looked like he was ready. He was born for this, right? And then the next year, before it even starts, like April, May, around that, he tears his Achilles off site. So and it was like, mum's the word, man. It was really bizarre when he tore his Achilles. Like no one wanted to talk about it. And I thought it was like just, BS. But turns out it wasn't, clearly. So he ends up going through that year. He gets back at the very end of last year, gets those 3 games of pension credit, which makes him a restricted free agent. So then he plays in the playoffs, plays in the Super Bowl, really just not a factor at all. Was pretty bad. I'm just going to be honest. The Bucs game almost cost him the game, fumbled twice at the goal line. So you can't forget about that. Once at the goal line and once at the zone 20. So you can't forget about that. So what does Akers do? Well, he then goes into the offseason. They just won a Super Bowl. He's kind of doubting himself a little bit. Maybe not himself, but maybe doubting how much the Rams feel about him. And so, Darrell Henderson's emerging as the guy. They go out and they draft Kyren Williams. Not feeling great, right? Darrell Henderson starts the season as the starter. Kyren Williams gets hurt. So Cam Akers is the number 2. All that stuff that Kyren Williams did in the joint practice with the Bengals, well, doesn't matter because now he's hurt. So Cam, it's back and forth with him. Like he had a touchdown, I believe, against the Falcons, had a touchdown against Arizona. So they weren't done with him, but he clearly didn't like how he was being used, voiced his displeasure, and wanted to trade. And he was benched, basically. I mean, I know no one's going to say that from the organization, but I think we can all agree he was benched. They get rid of Darrell Henderson. And the running back coach who they hired in a 15-minute interview, that's what I was told, they go back to their old running back coach in Thomas Brown, who's now the offensive coordinator in Carolina. And immediately the results were there. So Akers has been kind of up and down, but the way he finished last season, those last 5 games were among the best in the league. And if you extrapolate that over a 17-game season, it's a top 3 season in the NFL. So that's why he's on my honorable mention. It's really weird because, I've gone back and forth with him, but right now I'm feeling good about him. And, the Rams improved their offensive line. I mean, is it crazy to say he could be on this top 10 and even, emerge in that top 5 this year? Because I don't think it is.
No, it's not. But one other thing too, Jake, he has to stay healthy. He has to be ready to go this year because I think, we talk about a lot of these running backs and we want them to emerge on our list. But if he's not healthy, Jake, and he doesn't finish the way he finished last year, he's not going to be on this list, right? We have him on honorable mentions because of the way he finished. But if he has an up and down year, and I don't think we can consider him here. But there's someone that's across the street that finished really strong. Well, we talk about on your honorable mentions list, but Kenneth Walker. Right, 5 100-yard rushing games, like similar to Cam Akers, where these guys are finding a way to snap when it comes to like the end of their season. So, you mentioned it earlier, Jay. You mentioned how Cam Akers, people are getting hurt. He has a chance to step up and move. We talk about quarterbacks being currency in the NFL, but I mean, at this point, you can also say a running back, right, can be that valuable for your team as well. And I want to go back to the Seahawks piece a little bit, Jake, just to list some of their running backs that they have. Zach Charbonnet, that we just talked about, got drafted out of UCLA. great one-cut guy, home run ability. DJ Dallas stepped up big as a number 2, right? He's returning kicks, he's returning punts, but he's also catching the ball in the backfield and doing really well for the Seattle Seahawks. Kenny McIntosh as well. We talk about Kenneth Walker. So they got a group of guys that can really rotate in and find some success. And I want to jump for an example of another team who uses their running backs really well. Talk about the Eagles last year, how they had multiple running backs who could step in and make things happen. No matter who it was, we got Sanders, we got different players, his name is slipping my mind. Jake, running back, short, Scott, Boston Scott. They had guys who can give different looks in different ways, and I think for teams to be successful, they have to have guys that can give different looks. One guy is not going to get it done. You need a different view and a different perspective. So I love that about the Seahawks. So just want to say that.
Yeah, no, and I mean the Eagles, they're doing it all over again. Okay, we lose Sanders, and we're not the same or whatever. Well, they just went out and they got Rashad Penny, right? Mm-hmm. They have Boston Scott, they have Kenny Gainwell. And they just added DeAndre Swift. So, I mean, they have a option for every single situation. And I think that's a cool thing when you have that. I mean, the Rams to a degree might even have that now. Cam Akers, they have Ronnie Rivers, they have Kyron Williams, and they went out and they got Zach Evans in the draft. So we'll see if they keep Ronnie Rivers, but as of right now, they do have that home run threat. They have kind of a situation a piece for every situation, if you will. But I think that's going to do it. I think that's going to wrap it up. Special shout out to your lady. Happy birthday to her.
Yeah, to Erinique. Happy birthday to her. We're going to do a nice little dinner tonight, and we're getting married in Hawaii. So we're going to go check out Hawaii.
That's awesome.
In the upcoming week. So yeah, pray for us. Wedding planning. We can do our own off the edge show on wedding planning itself. But Jake, I know you got another birthday as well.
I do. And I know it's another Ram, but I mean, if you went and you looked at who the best players were born yesterday, you would say Dre Bly. He was one of the best. Today, there's no question. It's Aaron freaking Donald. Happy birthday to AD. He turns 32. In my opinion, I think he's the greatest player of all time. Greatest, I understand GOAT is considered, all about accolades and whatnot. But when I look at dominance, there's a question about the quarterbacks. Okay. Yeah. There's always a debate. Whether you're right or wrong, there's a debate. Whether you think it's crazy that people debate it, there's a debate, There's no debate now for interior defensive linemen. Aaron Donald's the best defensive player of all time. And he's doing it in the toughest era to do it in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, the game is changing and he's adapting with it. And he's probably one of the shortest defensive linemen, Jake, in that Hall of Fame. Short Kings, right? 6 feet tall, like 270.
I mean, I'm not even close to 6 feet, but yeah.
But what he's doing is impressive. Happy birthday to Aaron Donald. He has a lot more to go. So it's cool to be along this journey and to watch him and witness him play.
Big time. So that is going to do it for us. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Cameron Lynch. You can go follow him at Cameron Lynch 50. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow the show at Off the Edge Show. We'll be back soon. But until next time, you guys take care. And we'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.